issues or items before we begin, and I pass the presentation. Please make sure you have muted yourself. I'm hearing a couple of people. Usually you're muted automatically, so I just wanted to make sure that everyone is unmuted so the lines are kept clean. So our today's webinar, Getting Fit Bit by Bit, is the Project Search program at Children's Hospital Colorado is in its second year of implementing a robust health and wellness model, which is an expansion of the existing HealthMatters curriculum. The backbone of this health and wellness model is the use of Fitbit devices for each student to track activity, inspire motivation, and spark friendly competition. This model explores adaptive recreation through a partnership with the Campus Wellness Center to help students identify fitness interests while being mindful of each student's unique athletic ability. Participants today will learn how to replicate this health model at their own Project Search site. Additionally, participants will be given ideas on how to access local resources to help secure Fitbit devices and community partnerships within their own communities. And then resources, tools, and templates will be provided to participants to support their implementation of the model. I wanted to introduce our presenters today, Claire Charles and Renee Salvi. I'm going to have them introduce themselves in a little bit more words. Welcome, Claire and Renee.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. So you've got Claire here, and my title is the Business Liaison for Children's Hospital. So I oversee the Project Search program here at the hospital.
And I'm Renee Salvi. I'm the Project Search instructor here at Children's Hospital. I'm an employee with a nearby school district, and I kind of cover day-to-day classes and job coaching and overall see the program through and implementing our fitness and wellness program. So we're excited to share more about that with you today.
Yeah. And we're excited to mention that our Project Search program here at Children's Hospital is in its 10th year. So we've had just over 80 students come through our program across the 10 years. So we're a very well-established program. But we do recognize that there could be a few people on the call who might not have familiarity with the Project Search model. So we just wanted to do a very quick nutshell description of what Project Search is. So essentially, Project Search is a school-to-work transition program for young adults with significant disabilities. Students come to Children's Hospital where they serve in 2 semester-long internship rotations. They have a fall internship rotation and a spring internship rotation. And the big idea there is that they're gathering the skills and tools needed to gain and maintain employment. At completion of the program, we help our students look for and secure competitive employment either here at the hospital or elsewhere in the community. So it's a wonderful program. For those of you who are not familiar with it, we invite you to go on the projectsearch.us webpage and check it out, or you could do a Google search for Project Search at Children's Hospital Colorado to see how we have the program operating here within our walls. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So Getting Fit Bit by Bit, you heard the little brief description that was given before we started. But this all came about because we actually received an offer from a donor. So here at Children's Hospital, we have an incredible foundation who works with community donors to try and match them with causes that they are interested in. So we were fortunate to be approached by a donor who had an incredible interest in health and wellness for this population of students. And before we get too far into this, we do want to recognize that not every Project Search site across the nation is going to find themselves in a situation where a donor is trying to give them a sum of money. So before we go too far, we just want to recognize that we've got resources at the end of the presentation that will provide you with some ideas on how you can secure your own funding to try and replicate something like this. But essentially what we did is we put together a proposal for the donor that just kind of outlined some ideas that we had that would address some of her health and wellness interests. And we were really trying to play off the existing HealthMatters curriculum. It's a wonderful resource that was given to every Project Search site in the nation. So we certainly implement that in our classroom, but just kind of wondered, is there a way for us to take this a little step further? Can we supplement that curriculum with some additional resources, some additional fun? So like I said, we did end up receiving the gift. We received a $10,000 gift from our donor. A big premise for our case was that, according to the CDC, obesity rates for adults with significant disabilities are 58% higher than adults without disabilities. So when you consider that, it's pretty remarkable, and it just kind of shows that there is room for more work to be done. So as was mentioned, so we'll go into the planning phase of our, so we received our $10,000 gift, and we had to think through how are we going to spend this money, essentially. So how are we going to budget it? The very first thing that we knew we wanted to do was to purchase each student a Fitbit. We thought that the Fitbit device could be kind of the backbone of what we did for the health and wellness curriculum. And so we used a large chunk of money purchasing the Fitbits for the students. They were able to keep the Fitbit devices. We can get more into that in a little bit here as we talk through this. Beyond that, we thought, okay, so we're going to have the Fitbit. The students are going to be tracking and monitoring their activity. But let's also see if we can weave in some fitness programming. So at the time, we kind of polled our students in the class and found out that many of them had never been into a gym setting before, maybe through PE growing up, but they hadn't been to a gym where, like a 24-hour fitness or another setting like that, where, they were able to access some of those classes that people like to take, like Zumba or cycling. So we thought, wouldn't it be neat if we could plug in some of that to this wellness programming? And then finally, we had to think through our timeline. So as most of you know, being involved in Project Search, the program is incredibly busy. You are busy from the moment you walk through the door to the moment the students leave at the end of the day. So we had to ask ourselves, what pockets of time are we going to be able to find to address some of our goals for this wellness programming? And we did start it in the spring. It was something we started in January, and it ran through when the students graduated in May. So we really had to be intentional during that especially busy time of the year to map out how we were going to challenge our students with these fitness goals. So one of the things that we recognized pretty early on, too, was that we wanted to incentivize the students for participating in this. We wanted to make it fun. We wanted to show them that fitness is not only incredibly important, but it's fun. So we wanted to use a portion of the money to incentivize the students through what we called essentially wellness challenges. As we were trying to think of the wellness challenges, we thought, we could do one a month, and then whoever won the challenge, whether it was based upon data we were receiving from the Fitbit or based upon something the student did independently over the weekend, we had to think through a number of considerations to ensure it was fair across the board. So one thing that we thought was, what is the ease of implementation here? We certainly can't be at the student's home tracking those things, so we had to really think through all that. The fairness. So all of our students have differing physical ability, and I think when we thought through, we've got someone over here who might be using a cane, or someone over here who loves to run and they do it every single weekend. We had to find a way to level set so that all students had a fair opportunity. We did have to appoint a point person. So as we thought through who's going to be the person that's tracking all of this, all of us are incredibly busy and didn't really think that we had a ton of time in the day to devote to tracking the data from the Fitbits, whatever. So we thought, let's definitely appoint a point person to take care of some of this. We thought the bandwidth of the students. How quickly are the students going to be able to pick up the functionality of these Fitbit devices? What is the experience for them going to be like at the gym trying to run on a treadmill that they've never been on before? So we certainly thought through that. And then finally, all of our students come from different walks of life. Each of them have incredibly different home environments, and where some students might have a treadmill down in their basement, other students don't have access to something like that. So we wanted to make sure that it was level there as well. Some additional considerations, obviously the cost. We were working with a fixed amount of money, so we wanted to ensure that we were staying within our budgetary constraints. I think I mentioned the physical limitations. We knew that if we were to do any type of fitness programming, it would have to have an adaptive lens, so that any person who might not be able to, let's say, ride a cycle bike independently would have an accommodation, essentially, that they could use to participate. Sensory concerns was another one that we thought about. As we were thinking through what classes we might have wanted to take at the Wellness Center, it was brought to our attention that oftentimes in yoga, which is one of the classes we wanted to try, the instructor will come around and do physical adjustments throughout the course of the class, and that involves, resting hands on hips or shoulders, whatever it might be, and we knew that some of our students were maybe averse to that type of touch. Scheduling, I mentioned, always a concern when you're in the middle of a busy second semester internship rotation. We had to think through the liability, so although all of our students are over the age of 18, and most were their own guardians, we asked ourselves what would happen if the students were to be injured while they were participating in this type of a program. And then finally, we certainly did want to weave in the interests of the students. So we did some pre- and post-polling of our students to find out where they were at with wellness and exercise, and we wanted to know what they were interested in. So if you could take any fitness class in the world, what would you guys like to take? And so we really used that data to shape the selection of courses that we took from the Wellness Center. So let's see. So as I mentioned, we had some incentives for the students, and each incentive item that we gave to the students was based upon it somehow could be connected to active living. So we'll get into this a little bit later, but we did do 6 mini challenges throughout the course of the spring semester. So some examples of those challenges where we did who could get the most steps in an hour, who could climb the most stairs in a day. Those are just some examples of the mini challenges we did. And then for the winner of those challenges, we provided one of these gifts that you see on this list here. So whether it was fitness equipment or access to something that would encourage them to walk. So here in Denver, we have, the Colorado Rockies play here, but if you're going to a Colorado Rockies game, you are doing a ton of walking. Same with our zoo. So those are just some good examples of our incentives. And then again, I think I was ahead of myself there, but we had challenges. So we brainstormed ideas of how we could engage the students in healthy competition, and we actually had a lot of fun with it. I think of all the things we did, the challenges, maybe even more so than the classes we took at the Wellness Center, were really what sparked interest of the students in participating in this wellness programming. They loved, throughout the course of the day in their internship, for those who had maybe a more sedentary internship, and let's say the goal was stairs, they would communicate with their department, hey, I'm involved in this internship, and do you mind if we take the stairs today? So the students were really active in trying to drive their outcomes, and it was fun to see them come back at the end of the day and, immediately they're like pulling out their watches saying, how many steps do you have? How many stairs did you get? So that was a really nice, that you could really see the friendly competition in their spirit when they came back to class. I mentioned this before, gathering resources. We will discuss at the end how this can be replicated at other sites that might not have access to a donor. So don't worry, just bear with us and get some ideas, and then we will discuss that here in a minute.
So as Claire mentioned, we had talked about, we went through this big planning phase, and next came kind of the execution, what it would look like day to day here in the classroom and how we could weave it in. So we looked at our students as we were going to the Wellness Center, and we wanted to make sure that there were no barriers in clothing, footwear. We wanted to make sure that they were all able to come, be present, and be comfortable in what they were working out in. So with our group, we decided to use a piece of the budget for uniforms. We went to Target, Walmart, wherever we could find a great deal, and get pants or leggings for the individuals participating. And then we tried to use as many free resources as we could as well. And Claire looked around the HR department and was able to find shirts that matched. So this way, as we were going into the Wellness Center, we just, it kind of formed a team. And we'll talk later how a lot of, with the wellness and with the challenges, even though there's that friendly competition, there was a really great sense of social camaraderie with the Wellness Center, the shared experience within it, so the uniforms helped a lot as well. Each year we do it a little bit different. Sometimes we'll have students who will leave the uniforms here, we'll take them home, wash them. It depends on, again, home resources. The past 2 years, our families and students all have access to resources to wash their own clothes. So we even made that kind of an independent living challenge within our wellness challenge of wearing your clothes home, washing them, bringing them back, and leaving them here washed and cleaned so that they're ready to go. But it's great for students to say, yes, I threw this in the washing machine, it is clean, we're ready to go. So we try, especially in the classroom, and as we know, there's a lot to the Project Search curriculum and the HealthMatters curriculum. So tying in as many things together through wellness has been a lot of fun, and many different aspects of the Project Search curriculum can be tied into it. So when Fitbits arrived, it was a very exciting time. It's usually also kind of right after the holiday season, and so the gifts keep on giving. We make sure to fully educate the students on use of Fitbit. So we want to make sure that we are doing justice to our wellness program and making sure that it's not just a glorified watch on their wrist, but they know what all of the symbols mean, they know how to manipulate the watch, they are able to open up the corresponding app, and they can look at how many steps, how many calories, how many active minutes, and what all those things mean. So we talk about just, again, the manipulation part of the Fitbit. Fitbit YouTube has great resources for working a Fitbit. I myself had never had one, so and our staff were quickly able to become educated so that we could support our students. And we would have students teach each other because they pick up on technology so quickly. They would go home, and the next morning, at least for the first few weeks, we'd have them share something new that they learned and teach the rest of the class what it was they learned and how to do it, which was really great. Again, just kind of that shared learning, communication skills that we were working on. And all of the Fitbits were linked. All of our students here have access to a children's email account, so that way, as we were pulling data, it was all something that we had access to as well. And we would do morning and daily check-ins related to challenges, related to just, is your Fitbit on and charged? So those responsibility pieces. And we continue, even though we got them early in January, we continue throughout the year to check in and make sure people are using them effectively, troubleshooting, answering any questions that they have. So like I mentioned earlier, there were quite a few skills to teach, and a lot of them are related to just the manipulation of the watch, and then all of the other functions and functionality that you can look at and see with the watch. So we spent about a week of classroom time is dedicated to all of these different things. So we're actually looking at how to read calories on the watch, but then we discuss what calories mean. We talk about steps. We look at active minutes, and then what does that mean? How can we get exercise in? We additionally add MyFitnessPal as kind of a fun food challenge because we talk about health and wellness as overall well-being and not only fitness, but healthy eating as well. So with that HealthMatters curriculum, really weaving in how to log your food, how to make sure that it's a healthy meal. And again, sleep is very important when we are talking about health and wellness, and so we've added that in as a challenge to make sure students are still getting here on time, but that they're getting a good amount of sleep, and the Fitbits track that as well. Claire had mentioned that we wanted to make sure that for all of the differing abilities of our students, that baselines were fair. So a lot of our challenges, students are competing against their original baseline for things in a week. And once we look at those, so if it's steps in a week that they got as their baseline, when we're doing the step challenge, we're looking at what percentage increase of steps did they have. So again, they're more so competing against themselves rather than each other because they all have differing abilities. And we have, Excel has been our best friend in tracking all of the competitions. We let the students kind of work on pulling up data themselves so that they can see how they're doing. They look at their own graphs and charts. So again, just a really great way to implement many different skills in one setting. So going to the Wellness Center, everyone was super excited. It's always great to see students maybe who were a little more pensive, not sure, haven't really exercised before, or as Claire mentioned, hasn't exercised in a gym setting like this. So the Wellness Center is great because staff and people all throughout our Anschutz Medical Campus are here working out. So again, they get to see what it looks like for someone who's really busy to be able to schedule time for themselves and do some self-care. So I'm just going to talk briefly about some of the sessions that we did. And when we talk about resources later, we know that not everyone has access to a wellness center on campus. But before this, we had mentioned, and other sites had mentioned when we've discussed this before, that local YMCAs will offer classes at a reduced fee. Just talking to any of your local gyms and telling them what you're doing, a lot of people get very excited and on board and would be happy to host similar sessions. So our first session was just an intro to a gym, what it looks like. We talked about warming up, cooling down, making sure that we're safe while we're exercising. They got to do some fun competitions with relay races on the track. And then they got oriented to all of the different cardio equipment that's there. So, and they got to choose if a treadmill looked like something they were interested in, or elliptical, or we have students, they had access to a hand bike, which was great. And staff was there to support the students. Wellness center staff, there are 2 to 3 great trainers who talked with us beforehand. We discussed any accommodations that might be needed, but they lead the course, or each session, while Project Search staff is there to support students on an individual basis. Spin cycle is always a fun class where, again, a lot of students, their healthy competition comes out, they get to listen to music, they get to have an instructor kind of telling them what to do, which is really exciting because a lot of times they might have sat on a bike before, but no one ever was giving them instructions, and it's a great time. Everyone really enjoyed that session. We have water aerobics. This one was always interesting to implement because a lot of students, we had quite a few students who just hadn't been in the water ever or in a while, and it was overcoming some fears for them. And it was really great to see those students really kind of blossom within that and just be willing to try new things. So again, it gets them out of their comfort zone. Even though we're working out, we're covering a lot of different topics and just kind of social, emotional learning as we're doing health and wellness. Zumba, also a great one. A lot of students who maybe were a little more reserved came out and shined during this class because they felt it was a place that there were no judgments, they could follow along with the movements, great music, had a great Zumba instructor. And then our last session is at doing yoga at the Wellness Center. So they actually brought in a yoga teacher who does adaptive yoga, and he was able to support our students and create a really welcoming environment. Students who thought yoga would be their least favorite, they were like, wow, I feel so relaxed. So it was great to see. And this year we kind of each year look to incorporate new things into our wellness programming. And again, just kind of looking at resources, a mental health provider provided us with a resource for additional yoga sessions that were at reduced charge or free of charge for our group. And so we actually, outside of the Wellness Center, have found resources to continue to do yoga and practice mindfulness, which we cover social emotional learning in our Project Search curriculum, and we can really build off of it and see some of the changes our students have. So like I said, another portion, not just Fitbits, but for our health and wellness, is healthy eating. And we really pulled from HealthMatters and then incorporated additional things that we could do with help from our donor and just help from community resources. So we took, King Soopers is our local grocery store, so we took a trip there, but most grocery stores I've run into are happy to do tours, very educational. This year, instead of King Soopers, we actually did a tour at Natural Grocers. Again, great, they provided us healthy snacks, did a little cooking demonstration for us, took us around the store. So any grocery store does an amazing job with this. And so, one, we took public transportation there to support students in that training. And then once we got there, we had kind of representatives from each area of the grocery store discuss the different foods, how to shop there, kind of what the healthiest foods are, how you can shop on a deal. When we were in the produce section, how to look for produce that's good and in season. We practiced reading nutrition labels. We talked about customer service, what services they actually provide. And then, as Project Searches is focused on employment, as we went through each of the departments, we would ask questions, and we had students prepare questions about employment opportunities and benefits as an employee of King Soopers, and what did they do before they became an employee. So again, with that health and wellness piece, we try and embed as many different things as we can, and it makes it really easy and fun for us to incorporate different topics, and our students enjoy that. So we received from the donation, each of our students received a $100 gift card for King Soopers. And again, this is a piece that we look at each year to see what would benefit our group of students most. So for this particular year that I'm talking about, when they each received a $100 gift card, we went to King Soopers to practice grocery shopping. We had them look for a healthy snack. They read nutrition labels. Maybe they went to the produce section and picked out a piece of fruit that they had never tried before. And then we also looked at talking to our students about how to use a point of sales machine, all of that good stuff. And again, just the practice of walking through a grocery store, taking public transportation there, showing them that there are all these varying opportunities. One piece that we incorporated, we had students look at an online platform. So we know that we have students who don't always have access to healthy foods, and that there are barriers that prevent them from eating healthy, making healthy choices. And some of those are just not being knowledgeable or really having the practice of making those healthy food choices. So we cover that a lot in the classroom about how to build a healthy meal. We research healthy recipes. But another piece is transportation and maybe access to actually getting those foods. And so we wanted to introduce them to online shopping for grocery stores. So we helped them set up an online account. We practiced searching for items. We compared prices. We looked at all of the different things. There are keys for entering notes. So just kind of walking them through each step, and then how to actually check out and make a payment with their gift card that they received. And this piece was great because it was a real-life hands-on lesson that they were getting, because they chose a recipe, and then we ordered all of that online with them in class and had it delivered to their door. So again, just kind of removing some barriers for students who might not have access to going to the grocery store, having a grocery store close to them, don't know the route, using public transportation yet. So our students picked a healthy recipe. We kind of supported them. We wanted to make it something that their families were on board with as well. So we had families look at what would they want to help support their students in creating. So at home, students kind of took pictures of the process with their family members, and the next day after they prepared their meal, they brought it in to share for lunch. So they talked about the process of finding their meal online, the process of cooking it at home with their family or cooking it at home by themselves, And during that time, we had the donor come in and visit with us as well, so she could really see what was going on in the classroom. The students shared their experiences with the Fitbits. It was kind of a cumulative project that we did. And then we compiled all of the recipes that students brought from home or found online into a keepsake cookbook that they had. And again, just providing them as they walk out with another resource for healthy living. And we were able to give that to them. Like I said, each year it might look a little different. Sometimes we might have families who don't have the bandwidth to help prepare meals at home. So each year we kind of look at our students and at our families. So this year we're altering it a little bit to where we're doing more in the classroom cooking, so either through no-bake recipes. I talked about natural grocers. They have access to a full kitchen, and they said it is free for you to use whenever you want. So we're using, again, tailoring it to the group of students that we have each year and making it work for our group of students and being creative and flexible in that. Part of cooking, what we really wanted to do before we had access to natural grocers that we knew about, but we'll do this again this year, cooking classes at the rec center. So there are a multitude of rec centers who offer cooking classes at a really reasonable fee for large groups. We had a wonderful instructor, and they went through the full process of creating a meal. We talked about hand hygiene and food safety. We talked about knife safety and chopping. We practiced reading recipes, measuring out ingredients. So again, we had done a little of this prior to going to the cooking class, but this was a great place for them just to get in action in the community with the ability to use a full kitchen, which was really nice. So they made a full Mediterranean meal, and everyone really enjoyed it. It was something that a lot of them hadn't tried before, so again, just kind of broadening what they see as good food, like good tasting food, and then what's healthy food and how to combine those two so that they can start making healthier choices.
Yeah, so when we talk about some of our outcomes, we had both hard data outcomes and also anecdotal outcomes from some of our students. Sorry, I'm just going to switch to the next slide. So as you see here, when we think back to the Fitbits, we did, as Renee mentioned, collect some baseline data on the students. So what that looked like was we actually had the students, it was a two-part thing. We were, on the one hand, monitoring them for the ability to show up to program with the watch on and charged across 2 weeks, and so we turned that into our very first competition. We were just looking for that behavioral component of making sure that the student was in the habit of charging it when they got home at night, putting it on in the morning, and showing up to program with it. But simultaneously, we were kind of secretly collecting baseline data because we had said to the students, you know, don't go crazy, don't have this watch and run out the first day and try and get as many steps as you possibly can. So the students were pretty good with that. They kind of did their normal routine, just wearing the watch, and we were able to get some really good baseline data. But what you will see is that the steps improved. So over the course of the semester, the average steps per day really increased for most of our students. So we did have one student, intern 8, who did not heed our advice, and he really went crazy the first day, so his declined, I think, a little bit, but that happens occasionally. And then our active minutes per day, so you'll see we measured that as part of baseline, and most all of those increased as well. So the average active minutes per day went up, again, intern 6, the anomaly here, but so we were pleased with these results. I think if you look at intern 8, if I'm recalling correctly, this young lady was one of our gals who had a treadmill in the basement, and so she really challenged herself to try and use that as much as she possibly could over the course of the semester, and she had a huge jump. But I want to say, too, that even we had a young lady who lived in an apartment complex and didn't have access to, you know, a gym or any of that type of things, and so she would go out and just climb her stairs in her apartment complex. So I think the students got really creative in trying to find ways that they could access, you know, challenges throughout the course of their day. We had a lot of great anecdotal data. So we did provide our students with feedback forms. So for every activity we did at the Wellness Center, as well as our cooking classes, et cetera, we did want to get some anecdotal data from the students. How did you feel about that? What was your favorite part? So each of them filled out a feedback form after each of our activities. And we started to see some changes in behavior. So we saw certainly that the students were less inclined to take the elevator. Many of them started to use the stairs. A lot of their conversations shifted. So first semester, it was, the students would come back to the classroom, and it was a lot of conversation about their day and what they were doing that weekend. But second semester, we really noticed that many of them were having discussions about their health and wellness, which was very cool to see. The students got very competitive with one another. It was kind of even on the weekends, too. They would come in Monday morning, and we would start to see them having conversations about, oh, how many steps did you get over the weekend? Well, I went on a hike. Well, I did this. So that was neat. We will say that as of the time that we gave this presentation at the national conference, most all of our students that were hired here at Children's that we see frequently were all wearing their Fitbits. So it became a part of their daily routine to put on that watch and track their activity. Yeah, and then the other nice piece that we saw was we saw a ton of family involvement. So as Renee mentioned, we did engage with the families for the healthy eating component of it. So when it came to finding a recipe and helping to cook that. But the families also kind of stepped up and really wanted to support the activity component of it. So we would hear that, they knew that the student had to get X amount of steps over the weekend to qualify for the competition, so they would go on a family hike, which was really awesome to hear from some of our students. And we also had some wonderful unexpected benefits. I think we could have all guessed that, there would be an increase in activity and that the students would enjoy having access to some of this. But what we did see, I don't know if you guys know much about Fitbits, but most of them are able to take a phone call, which is great. So we preach here, and I'm sure you do at most of your sites, that if you certainly have your phone on your work site, but it's there to help you if you need to reach out to one of the team members to assist you with something. Other than that, we didn't want to see the phones out. So the watches provided a nice tool for discretion. And so if they felt it buzzing, they could take a quick look at their wrist and say, oh, this is Renee calling me. I should probably pick this up because she's coming over to help me. Or, oh, this is my buddy Tom calling me, and he wants to know what I'm doing this weekend, so I know that I'm not going to take out my phone. And we really appreciated that side effect. The Fitbits and some of the activities that the students were doing was a wonderful conversation starter. Oftentimes for any of us, striking up a conversation with a colleague can be difficult, but if you've just come from a Zumba class, it's a lot more fun to say, guess what I did this morning? We had one student who, you'll see it says Lime Bikes there, so that is a public bike sharing program that we have here in Denver. I'm sure it's at many other cities across the nation, but we had one student who wanted to engage with that as a function of this wellness program. So he would ride the Lime Bikes to and from programs so he could get those extra active minutes. So we had a lot of unexpected benefits. So that was kind of the program in a nutshell. And I did mention to you at the start of this that we do have some ideas for how to gather resources for replication at other project search sites. So we're going to go ahead and switch to that form. And I'll say again, we recognize that not everyone has a donor that's wanting to give a $10,000 gift. So when we sat down as a team and said, how could we try and replicate something like this if it were not for the gift? So we'll start with raising the capital to try and do something. There's lots of opportunities, and Renee, feel free to jump in here, but a GoFundMe page is a great way to gather funds. You can go on there and check it out. You'll see the insane list of things that people are asking for money, and oftentimes there are dollars that people are donating to that. You could consider approaching a large corporate retailer for the Fitbit devices. Usually if you're buying in bulk, they'll be willing to cut you a deal. Your school districts. So I know that our school district here, they do have a slush fund that occasionally they're able to allocate to needs if you can make a good enough case. So your local school districts might have something like that. You could certainly apply for a grant. And I'm sure many other cities across the nation have programs like this where a local restaurant will host a night, maybe like a Wednesday night, where a percentage of all the proceeds go towards the program. So if you are friendly with any of your local restaurants, maybe pop in and see if they'd be willing to consider something like that. You could always do a pasta dinner or a bake sale, I don't know, lots of ideas.
Yeah. So we talked about kind of that raising money piece, but then just finding devices if monetarily you weren't able to come up with a grant or raise money. If you do have money, we always look for different deals. I know Black Friday, we always found a really great deal on our Fitbits, seeing if local businesses would, or large retailers would give a discount. We also, within a lot of businesses, kind of looking at what health insurance companies offer. So here at Children's, they offer employees the opportunity to rent Fitbits. So always checking with your host business to see if they have anything like that as well. Looking for, Fitbit is great because it comes with a lot of different bells and whistles, as Claire kind of mentioned with phone calls, but there are a lot of different fitness trackers that can be used, so just kind of broadening the horizon at Target, Walmart, looking for things. Again, approaching your local school district and seeing if within the physical education program they have any heart rate monitors, if they have any pedometers, anything that could be used to kind of inspire that motivation and then continue to help track steps, minutes, calories, all of those different things that we looked at.
Yeah. So that, I think, is it for our overview of our wellness programming. And I'm not sure how the question component was going to work here, I think.
Thank you so much, Claire and Renee. It's Ina again. All right, so we have come to the end of the presentation. Please put in the chat box if you have any questions, and then we can ask Renee and Claire the questions. While we are waiting, I just wanted to kind of reiterate again, we have recorded this session. We will share the resources, PowerPoints, and handouts, so you will be able to download them. And then we also can share contact information if anyone wants to talk to you you guys in a greater detail. While I'm waiting for any questions, I did have a question for you guys. Are you planning on publishing any of these results in a journal?
You know, that's a great question. We're actually in our third year of implementing the program. So when we gave this presentation at the conference last year, that was year 2, but we're just getting it fired up again for the third year. And I think we had discussed as a team, we could really dig in a little deeper to some of the data that we're getting, whether it be from the watches or some of the anecdotal data from the students, or even engaging with the families to see how their experience here has been. So I think that that's on our radar to expand what we're looking at. And
even this year we expanded with, we're going to do a pre and post survey of the students for kind of overall well-being and fitness, just their attitude towards fitness, but then kind of how they're feeling physically. And then also, as we had mentioned, because we got a lot of questions about the social emotional piece. So were students feeling less stressed? Are the endorphins having an effect? Do they feel happier? Are they getting better sleep? Are they able to regulate their emotions a little bit better? Because as we kind of talked about it, when we're embedding fitness, it can be frustrating. So we'll have some students who might get upset about something, and then we work on some emotional regulation strategies. So we're pulling different pieces, and as Claire said, really looking at the effects that the program has on our students. One
other thing that we kicked around as an idea but didn't move forward this year is measuring BMI. We thought, could we, not on an individual basis, but more so as an entire group, could we do a pre and post BMI measure to see if there was any reduction there? So great, to circle back, great question. I think we're still trying to figure out what exactly we would be measuring if we wanted to try and move forward with publishing something, but it's certainly not off the table.
Okay, so if you look at HealthMatters curriculum, there's a whole slew of tests that you can use for exactly what you were looking for, and they were tested for people with intellectual disabilities. But we can talk about that offline. I am getting a bunch of questions.
Okay.
But I do want to talk to you about the publication. So we have one from Nate. It sounds like this program is tailored for individuals who do have a certain degree of independence. Is there some kind of ability threshold or acceptance into your program? If so, do you know or have any programs for individuals who may not be as independent?
That's a great question.
Yeah, and so I'm assuming that this is for just Project Search as a whole into the program. And so we always say that for the students that we accept and who participate in the program, they truly have a really wide range of abilities. So what we look at when we are looking for students to participate in Project Search is, one, are they willing and motivated to work? Whatever work looks like for them, and obviously through Project Search there are certain hours that they're meant to work, but we want to see, are they motivated, are they excited to work, and then do they have a positive attitude towards learning in a workplace environment? So those are the things that we really look at, and I would say we have students who might come to Project Search in maybe their second or third year for transition. So they have some time to kind of gain more independence in a different transition program before coming to Project Search. I would say that what we really look for, as I said, is that attitude, and we take and accept any students who kind of demonstrate that attitude and that willingness to work. So we have a lot of support staff through Project Search with our job coaches, very supportive departments, that we can implement accommodations, modifications to the internship sites to make sure that it fits the students' needs. And we also work with great partners who support us in our students come to program using public transportation, whether it's a door-to-door service or public buses or light rails. And again, we do extensive training to help prepare students to be successful in our year-long program. But really, there's not I would say, because it's in quotes, the threshold for being independent. Our goal is for them to eventually work as independently as possible, but teaching them to advocate for themselves, looking for those resources out in the community that when Project Search staff is not around, can they work with, for us in Colorado, there are local community centered boards who provides long-term job coaches, so really preparing them to be as independent as possible in employment.
Thank you. And this question is actually feeding into what you were just talking about. Do you think the interns understood the connection between health and employment? And what did you do to reinforce this connection?
I think, can you repeat the question one more time? I think it cut
Sure.
out.
Do you think the interns understood the connection between health and employment? And what did you do to reinforce this connection?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we do, I do believe that kind of we gauge their understanding of why we're doing this. So it's not just, it is obviously for them to improve their health and wellness overall, but how it ties into employment. And so throughout each either wellness class, in classroom discussion that we're having, we tie it back to work. One of the things that we reiterate is our health and wellness as far as fitness and eating well is directly tied to our health, right? Like if we are sick or if we're not feeling well or if we're injured, and if we are feeling those things, we don't come to work. And so by exercising and by being mindful about what you eat, you improve your chances of staying healthier and being able to be at work every day, or you're lessening your chances of being sick. And we talk about that as well, just kind of long term of if people have employment goals of being on their feet a lot, so building stamina within it. And so I've even heard students maybe at the beginning of the spring semester when they're in their internship and something's kind of hard, maybe they're not physically active on their own and they're in an internship that's a little bit more physical throughout wellness practices, and then throughout their internship and building that stamina, we've had numerous comments of like, wow, this is actually easier now, or like I'm able to walk at a quicker pace to get from my classroom to the internship, and sometimes we'll help encourage that, even as their own kind of mini challenges. So again, we look at each student as an individual and tying into the importance of being healthy, being well, and then just kind of that social and emotional piece that we really emphasize. We tailor it to the students and have many conversations, lots of direct teaching moments, and then having students share their experiences of, like, I was really, just as far as work, like, you know, Claire was mentioning how students were then able to build more positive relationships with their coworkers because they could talk about these things. They had something in common, or through some of those fun workouts like Zumba or water aerobics, kind of overcoming some of their fears, and we would just really highlight that with the student and say, like, yeah, so you overcame your fears there, like let's put that into the world of work, and how can you overcome some fears that you have at work? A lot of them might be around social interactions, and so that's a great question, and I definitely see our students looking at that, and staff being very aware and sensitive to pointing out those things so that students realize it as well.
Thank you. We have a question from Shannon. Have you kept track of year one participants, and are they still using or maintaining the lifestyle?
Yep, that's a great question. So a little earlier I had mentioned that of the students who were employed here at Children's Hospital, those would be the ones that we see most frequently, and I'm pleased to report that we see almost all of them using their Fitbit devices still. I'll piggyback this onto another question that I think I saw pop up on the screen, which was what rewards, if any, did you use for winning the competitions? So we had a variety of rewards, I guess, but we also had a grand prize. So the grand prize for the student who demonstrated the most, I guess, overall commitment to the health and wellness programming for the spring semester, we got them a 6-month membership to our Anschutz Health and Wellness Center. And we were pleased to report that across the 2 years of students who have won that, they are regularly attending classes at the Wellness Center, going after work. So I think the commitment, certainly of those 2 students, to that lifestyle has remained intact. To answer a little bit further about the question of the incentives, so everything that we gave to the students had to be able to be tied back to health and wellness. So there were some tangible goods that we gave. So for example, we gave a gym bag that was filled with, it had like a water bottle and some other, a gym towel, those types of things. We had one student who won a competition who his sneakers were incredibly worn out. So we got his sneaker size and actually got him a brand new pair of sneakers, which was an awesome gift for him. And then beyond that, we did a lot of kind of memberships to places that involved walking. So our Denver Zoo here, it's huge. It's a lot of walking. And we had a student who loved to go to the zoo who won a challenge, so we got him a pass to the zoo. Some headphones for a student to use at the gym. I'm trying to think what else. We got one student a cooking class, so she and her mother reported that they liked to cook together, and so we bought them a cooking class to a healthy kind of chef place here in town that they could go try together, which was a fun prize. So those are some great examples of prizes that we gave to the students.
Thank you. I think Rochelle had the same question, the rewards that so I think you've answered that. Rochelle, let me know if you were satisfied with the answer. I had another question about, have you had any contact with Fitbit to share this great story?
Yeah, that's funny that you ask. So we have a corporate account for Fitbit here at Children's Hospital. So we have a health and wellness team that is specifically in charge of making those corporate connections. We haven't necessarily shared back this information with them. To be completely fair, Fitbit wasn't that willing to negotiate on the price of their devices with us. You have to buy a certain quantity of them in order for the price to come down. So we actually, for 2 of the last years, have gone outside of Fitbit to purchase the devices and kind of didn't have much of a working relationship with them. But I do think it could be worth it to kind of capture some of this and send it back to them. At the very least, they might be inclined to give us a break moving forward.
Yes, you never know. I think you should definitely contact them. You may even get some monies.
Yeah.
Another question was, do the interns keep the Fitbits, or if they return them at the end of the program?
Wonderful question. So we give the interns the Fitbits forever. I think when we looked at this, and that was something our donor felt particularly strongly about, if you're trying to create sustainable behavior change and you're basing it off of a device, we really felt that the students need to be able to keep those devices. So we are in the 3rd year of our gift with this donor, and she feels very passionately that these students need to have the ability to keep these. She didn't want it to be a situation where they were having to learn the devices, do all this great work, and then hand it back in at the end of the year, and all that behavior change is lost in the motivation. So not only that, we try to allow the students to customize the device that they want, so that they can choose their color, they can choose their watch band, because we want it to be something that they look down at their wrist and they're excited about. So we involve them, and we don't just go out and buy 10 basic black Fitbits. We let them kind of play around with what they want.
Thank you. Please let me know if there are any, someone asked some ideas for donors. I think I can go back to that identifying resources list. We'll share this list. So for raising money, these are some ideas that were kind of covered. I also wanted to, there are a few comments from Jamie from Newton, New Jersey Project Search site. So they said ShopRite program also does healthy eating presentations and brings healthy snacks, as well as allows interns to visit them and take a behind-the-scenes tour. So yet another sort of resource. Nursing education has been helpful as well, meaning that nurses came to teach CPR and first aid, babysitting classes, yoga, hand washing, and infectious disease. And then they also had a yoga instructor, kind of like what you guys had, come in and instruct as well. So I just wanted to share some comments from other sites.
Thank you.
Another question was, how do you motivate the parents to keep the healthy habits at home?
That's a great question.
Tough one.
Yeah, great question. So we start off the wellness programming with a big email home to families. Part of that email is asking them to, first of all, your student didn't steal that Fitbit from work today. It was given to them. And then it asks the parents to help support their student in their wellness journey by, making sure that the student is able to charge the device at home, that they're not losing it, et cetera. But then it's actually a call out. So Renee sends a call out to the families to ask them to help support their student in this journey. And I think it varies from year to year. We're in our 3rd year now, and I will say that this year our families are probably a little bit less engaged than our first 2 years, and we can't quite figure out why. But we were fortunate the first 2 years that the families really embraced this. I think they were excited that their student was entering into a phase in their life where their physical well-being was starting to become their control. And so they really supported, as I mentioned, they wanted to go on hikes with the student on the weekends. They wanted to help the student create that healthy recipe that we talked about that they brought in for kind of like a demonstration. And we got a lot of comments from parents over the course of the semester that just said, we're so excited about this, or, hey, I just wanted to share with you that when we were at the grocery store today, whatever it was that the student had done, that was kind of a highlight for the parents. So this year, like I said, a little different. We've struggled a little bit more with the families this year, but
yeah, but we just kind of keep that open dialogue with them throughout the semester too about different challenges, kind of what's coming up. and it just kind of varies on what the challenge is, whether parents are not become engaged in it. We also do home visits at the very beginning before the project search year kicks off, and we talk about our health and wellness program. So even just kind of from the start, making them aware of it. And it's great to see that a lot of parents will ask, or will ask a lot of parents, what kind of physical activity is your student interested in, and really try and get them to start thinking about those things and having those conversations with their students. So providing parents resources and just kind of the space to start these conversations with them, I think is really important, and I think that's where we see some of those healthy habits coming to the house just by informing parents and giving them some tools to use.
Thank you so much. We have reached our hour's end. If you have any other questions, please feel free to put them in, and I will send them out to the presenters. I wanted to again thank Claire and Renee. It was super interesting. I also found it very interesting just the use of technology and the use of internet. When we did the HealthMatters program, it wasn't as spread out widely, so I think the use of teaching participants to order the food and the process of all of that is it's a pretty cool skill to be teaching. So and it's a transferable skill as well. So thank you again. I will save all of the questions and everything, so feel free to write them in. I'll stick around for a few more minutes to see if there are any questions, but for those of you who are finished with us, feel free to sign off. And then Renee and Claire, if you just hang on, I think there's a couple of more questions coming, and we can sign off in a second. Let me just see. Thank you again. I think we're just getting, thank you, inspiring. Thank you. A lot of people are really liking the presentation, so I don't think there are any more questions. All right, we can just wait for a minute to see if a question or two come through. If not, we'll sign off.
Okay.
No, but you guys should really think about publishing. Even with small numbers, you still have a nice protocol and a nice descriptive data to publish.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah, I think that would be really interesting to see and just put out there for others to take a look at. And one of our favorite things about sharing these things is as the person in New Jersey is sharing what they do as well, and just kind of compiling all of the resources that people throughout the country use, I think is amazing to see.
Yes, absolutely. And these webinars are a really great way of being able to get on and share this, because, and then we can still listen to them later.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. I don't think there are any more questions. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank
we'll
you.
Be in touch. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.
Bye, Jasmina.
Bye.